Welcome back, adventurers. Now, today's video is for those of you that need a villain for your campaign, maybe even, dare I say it, a BBEG, but you're just not sure what flavor villain you're feeling like running. So here are 9 villains that you can lean on to create a foe that your players, your readers are never going to forget. And today's video is sponsored by Describe, but more on that to come soon. Let's start off strong. Now, the first villain that we've got on the list is the one you want to punch. Now, this villain is just an asshole, you know? They're just the smug, two-faced person. They're charming in public and they're super petty in private. These are characters like Hans from Frozen. They are the Umbridges, the Prince Joffreys. And what's amazing about these villains is that they're a great way to unite your party. If you have a party where you have people who maybe may not necessarily get along, well, one of the most unifying things you can do is to hate the same person together. So if you need to unify your party and maybe start off with a villain early in the campaign to bring them together, well, you know, you can give them one of these. Now, the second villain that we've got is the long game manipulator. These are those masterminds. So these are those people that are like 10 steps ahead of your players. They have 12 backup plans. These are characters like your Littlefinger or Palpatine. They send other people to do their work. You never actually fight them. You're just always fighting their schemes. And these villains are really good for political intrigue and for slow reveals and maybe getting your party to realize that the villain was somebody that they trusted all along, only to realize, you know, you're basically, your party thinks that you're all hunky-dory until you realize way too late that you were the pawns in the scheme the entire time. Now, the third villain we've got is the Tyrant. Now, these are the people that are just willing to burn the entire world down to get what they want. And these are the ones that I think we like to lean into for Dungeons and Dragons especially, but they're usually a little unstable because of something that's happened to them in the past, some sort of traumatizing event that has forged them, and instead of taking one path, they took the other path, right? So what I mean is these are characters like Wilson Fisk. Voldemort is a great example of this. Aemond Targaryen, who is willing to, spoilers, get rid of their own family members in order to ascend to the throne. And what I think makes these characters, these specific types of characters, the Tyrant specifically, amazing for your stories is that it is a constant reminder that evil exists inside of us. And it's just that these characters happen to act on those impulses. They took the path down that evil path. They took that evil path versus using it to make sure they never became that way, right? I think these are the characters that are going to make those great BBEGs, or those characters that your party is going to be very, very satisfied when they finally get to the point where they can take them on. Now, the next one we have is the Savior, and I think these are one of the most complex villains that you can bring to your stories because they're not necessarily evil, or at least they don't see themselves as evil. You know, the things that they do and the actions that they take, we might perceive as evil, but they don't think that they are. These are characters that are, they're usually intelligent, and beyond that, they also just believe that they are right, that everybody else is wrong, and that they're the only ones that understand what they're going through. So these are characters like Magneto and Thanos who have their agendas. Their morality makes sense for us. We understand why they are the way they are. It just gets to a point where suddenly it doesn't make sense, and that why are you willing to destroy everything in order to make this one thing happen? And I think that what works about these villains is that your players might actually agree with them, and that creates some really incredible ideological conflict within your party that might be amazing for some great role-playing opportunities. So the Savior is definitely one of those that I think makes for some complex role-playing and some complex storytelling. Now, the fifth one that we have is the Psycho. Now, these are your unstable and chaotic characters. They are very, very dangerous. They are even dangerous to try and understand, to try and get close with. These are characters like Joker or Jinx. They, like I said, they're unstable. They live to cause disruption. They live to create chaos. And what's amazing about these is that they are very difficult to predict, which means that they could do anything at any point, which makes your stories or your D&D campaigns incredibly fun. And you can go a million different directions with them because no matter what you end up doing with them, it makes sense for these characters. So when you want tension before every single decision that your characters make or that your player characters make, throwing in one of these types of villains is a great way to kind of always make them double think, you know what I mean? So anyways, guys, what are you doing? No, not again. Cut to the sponsor, cut. And if you're really in need of a descriptor or just need some inspiration, you can always turn to today's sponsor, Describe. What is Describe? Well, honestly, I thought a lot about how to describe Describe, pun intended, and it's the difference between reading about a stormy sea and actually feeling it, right? The chill as the thunder rolls and the waves crash, all perfectly timed with your story, all at your fingertips. And it's because Describe isn't just bringing sound, it's literally giving life to your adventures, from a massive array of maps to epic battle sounds and ambience and sound effects and immersive text that's already written for you, all the way to truly beautiful music. Honestly, the music alone should win some awards, and it all just makes your sessions so unforgettable. And the best part is that it's created by players for players, so all it takes is one subscription for the whole table. I promise you, if you are one of those DMs that wants to make that leap to make your table just that much better for your players, check out Describe and bring your next session to life. It's the tool I always wanted whenever I ran a game. I'm super excited that I found it. So click the link in the description, just give it a look. You're already on the internet, just click the thing, take a peek, and if you want to take the dive, create your account and use my code FANTASYFORGE. Now, the next villain on the list is the Echo, or the Mirror, and honestly, I think that these are, in my opinion, some of the most complex characters because they are the most real. These are usually your polar opposites to your players, or to one of your players, or one of your characters, right? They usually have the same exact origin story. They went through the same things or similar events, and the only difference is that one took one path and the other took a different. So these are usually best for emotional stakes and creating some conflict with your characters. And what I mean is these are characters like Joker and the Batman, right? The Joker exists as a polar opposite to Batman. Batman is all about law and order, refuses to kill, and the Joker is the complete opposite of that. They are all about indiscriminately killing in order to prove their point. They are all about chaos and disruption, and I think that that polar opposite, the echo, the mirror of that, of Joker to the Batman, is sort of what makes the Joker such a complex villain, and I think is what makes them such a relatable villain. Another great example of this is Abby and Ellie from The Last of Us. Both of them lost their father figures. One of them acted on that, well, I guess they both acted on that revenge story, but one of them was able to let go. One of them was able to find that forgiveness in their heart, whereas Ellie was not able to, and in the end lost everything because of that. So I think by having a character that you can use as a mirror, that you can hold up to your readers or to hold up to your characters, creates some of the most complex and some of the most interesting characters, because ultimately what we're doing there is finding that humanity in them and finding that realization that any point, by allowing us to fall into that despair, we could have easily been that person too. And I think that that is what makes them probably my favorite type of villain. Now, the next type of villain is the Empty Throne. Now, this one's really fascinating to me because you never know who they really are. And the reason for that is because there is no they. Usually they are an idea or a decentralized organization or a movement, but more importantly, they don't have a single leader. So, for example, in Game of Thrones, these are characters like the Faceless Men, right? These are characters that don't have a name.
A girl has no name.
Then, if we're going a little more realistic, these are groups like Anonymous, or going into another book or another series, these are characters like in Fight Club, where you're never sure who the leader is. I don't want to give any spoilers there. What works about these villains is that there isn't anybody that you can just go up and stab and cut off the head of the snake, right? Your players are not trying to kill someone, they're trying to dismantle an idea. So V from V for Vendetta is another great example of this. They are trying to take on an idea, and in that process, you can ultimately make them question their own. And I think that these are some very, very fun characters because they're great for mysteries. They're great for those political campaigns, because what can you do against something that can't be killed? Then there is number 8, the Reluctant Weapon. They don't want to be the villain. I think that's what makes them very, very compelling. They just are. These are characters that have gone through something that turned them into a weapon, right? This is a cursed child, like Credence from the Fantastic Beasts series. These are your unwilling generals, your unwilling soldiers. They are entities that are bound to magic, or they are bound to obey. Another great example of this is Bucky, the Winter Soldier, right? Or the Hulk, where the Hulk literally can't control himself. And what makes these characters work is that they are savable, that they aren't villains, they just cause destruction. They aren't necessarily evil, they just are sort of unstoppable, right? And saving them can be more powerful than just fighting them and killing them or taking them out. And I think that what makes these great is that it's going to challenge your characters, it's going to challenge your readers, and their empathy. So if you want to have something where you're trying to get to that emotional core of your characters and try to give them something more than just evil for evil's sake, the Reluctant Weapon is a great way to do that. And lastly, the last villain that we have here, number 9, is the alien or the eldritch being. Now, this is something that is not meant to exist in this world. These things are existentially terrifying, right? So these are things like the BTs from Death Stranding. We don't understand them. There is something about them that is unintelligible. Things like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, right? These are characters that they're from a completely different realm, a completely different world, something that we cannot fathom, something that we cannot understand. The Thing from The Thing. Anything Lovecraftian, right? Cthulhu is another great example of that. Any sort of aliens, right? The xenomorph. These are sort of personifications of fear and the unknown and the things that we don't understand, right? They don't talk, they don't speak, they don't monologue, they just exist. And these are really great for horror arcs. These are really great for cults or for that creeping dread that you want to constantly kind of drip into your stories or into your campaigns. And I think that they are some of the best ways of digging into that fear that we all feel from not understanding something, because we all can think about one thing that terrifies us. I'm going to be honest, for me, that's space. People always ask me all the time, would you go into space if you could? Absolutely not. I think it'd be incredible. I think it'd be an amazing opportunity, but there is that sense of like, wow, we are so small and infinitesimal in the grand scheme of things that to me is kind of terrifying, being able to look into the void like that. Is it beautiful? Maybe. Is it terrifying? Probably. So anyways, those are the 9 villains that I could come up with. If you have villains that you think I missed or villains that don't really fit into these, leave them in the comments down below. Help us out. We need villains. Somebody in the comments right now is scrolling looking for something that I didn't put up here, so please leave them down in the comments down below and let me know if I missed anything. And now, it's time for some quick shoutouts. Lau7583 says, "Good kitty, this does help a little bit more with finishing out some of my campaigns. Taverns became a big thing once my adventure is made to the East Coast, as it were. But I'm glad that some of my ideas you're confirming that I should do." Hey, those are just my ideas. If you probably have, nope, I'm going through puberty in there. You probably have better ideas. So, just do what's fun for you and for your party. And if it works, you'll know because people will continue to come back. So, yeah. Justice YT says, "I left my phone down away from me and I was starting to wonder where I put it, just listening to the video with my headphones, and I came back to our Displacer friend. And you know why, Justice? Because Tobias is always on time." On time? Tobias always shows up at the perfect, Tobias is showing up sometimes, at least once a video. Tabletop Tiger says, "DJ D Kitty is a regular tavern performer. Some say the music transports them to another place. Hopefully not the Feywild, and only real fans of this channel will know that, will understand that deep cut." Now, if you were paying attention in today's video, leave a timestamp in the comments down below with where you saw our little furry friend Tobias, and you just might get shouted out in the next video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Forge on, my friends, and you should turn around. They're right behind you.